golly, that's good.
I haven't found my first Blanton's.
Wow. That's different. I really like that.
Peychauds or Pechaud's or...
Yeah, now I'm gorgeous. Although probably fuzzier was better.
Okay. So, this is not what I expected. Hello there. How are you? I was just about to get started and the phone rang and it threw me off and I had things to do and I didn't get it all done. But here we are and it is Thursday and it is 7:30 and it is time to get drinking. We are in the midst of our Four Roses series. We started off with the 80 proof Four Roses bourbon. It's 80 proof. It's a recipe that combines everything that Four Roses has. There's 10 different recipes. This has all of it in there. Then last week we spanked this little bottle. This is the small batch. This one, by comparison, I'll give you those recipes real quick here. This is the recipe to the Four Roses. You see it has everything, all of it in there. 80 proof, aged a minimum of 5 years, which is okay. And then we get into the small batch recipe, and that one is minimum 6 to 7 years, 90 proof, and it only uses 2, 3, 7, and 8. Out of the 10 recipes, it only uses 2, 3, 7, and 8. Then tonight, and I apologize for the way this looks, I didn't quite get it right, but the small batch select uses 6 recipes, 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, and 10. So the recipes, once again, they look a little bit like this, y'all. It has the combination of mash bill B, 60% corn, 35% rye, and 5% malted barley in that top row. And each one of those letters, V, K, O, Q, F, those are different yeasts that they put within the profile. And in the bottom one, mash bill E is 75% corn, 20% rye, 5% malted barley. And of course, the V, K, O, Q, and F, again, the different yeasts. So you're talking about, hey Chris, how you doing? Hey Mike, welcome to the big shoe, as Ed Sullivan used to say. So those are the differences. This is going to use 6 recipes. This is the small batch select. Another difference between the small batch that I just completely knocked the bottom out of last week and last night, because we made whiskey sours last night because it was National Whiskey Sour Day. So I took a little bit more out of this bottle. This one, that was 90 proof. This one, on the other hand, is 104 proof, 52% alcohol by volume. And so it's going to be a little bit hotter. I have a little bit of the skinny on this particular one. I did not go online and do a whole lot of research on it, but what I found out just a little bit is that this small batch select was just introduced for the first time like a year or two ago. And it is non-chill filtered, 104 proof. It's the distillery's first permanent product line extension in more than a decade, and it's not available all over the country yet. Ohio is one of only a dozen or so states that you can pick up Four Roses small batch select. In comparison, they're both a combination of 6 and 7-year-old barrels, balanced mellow complex. Small batch is said to be fruitier. This one is defined by a more clove-like flavor. We'll get into that here in a minute. More dense in flavor. Blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Talks about the mash bills, the recipe differences. Next comes the F yeast strain. They had never used the yeast strain in any product outside the Four Roses bourbon. So this is a singular yeast strain, it sounds like. F strain. It's one-dimensional on the nose at younger ages, but becomes more complex as we age. So there we go. Okay. So now you know. Now you know where we are as far as why we're doing this one. Plus, it's just part of the series, and we have to. It's a rule. Oh, there it is. I had gotten so good at finding that perf. Look how quickly it comes off. That's so nice. All right. Let's see here. All right, so Mike and Chris, so far, we're going to keep going. We're going to get started on this here. And then, of course, after this is over, after we do the tasting, we are going to make another Black Manhattan, just the same way we have with the Four Roses 80 proof and the Four Roses 90 proof. We're going to do it with 104 proof, see how it Manhattans, the Black Manhattans. All right, let's get her started. Of course, we talked a little bit about Four Roses and its lore and why it's called Four Roses. The founder of the distillery was smitten with a Southern gal and asked for her hand in marriage, and she said, well, if I accept, I will show up wearing a corsage. And so she showed up to this event wearing a corsage of Four Roses. She said yes. So he got the Southern Belle. Kentucky girl, I think. Anyway, so he fell in love with the idea, he fell in love with his own love, and he named his first bourbon Four Roses. So there's the lore behind it. Who can resist a Southern girl, right? That voice of peaches and cream. They can't pronounce things right, but that makes it fun. All right. Normally I like to let this sit. I haven't let it sit, but I want to go ahead and get on into it. We'll just give it a few twirls and let it open up a little bit. We'll open it up again a little bit shortly with a little bit of water. So with 104 proof and a little bit different recipe, I'm expecting some big differences. We will find out right now. The ethanol is strong on the nose. The other thing I caught, there's that thing about Four Roses is citrus, and I caught pears on the nose. That was real fast. I gave it one quick nose, and that was it. So let me go back into it and see what else I can find. Pears just leaping out at me. The same notes as you might expect. There's vanilla and cinnamon. The cinnamon is popping in this. This is more spicy than the 90 proof and definitely more spicy than the 80 proof. Some caramel. Possibly salted caramel. This is a darker color, slightly darker. Again, I kind of hurt this bottle hard, but slightly darker color than its 90 proof cousin, and way darker than its 80 proof cousin. Maybe not way darker. Again, this one has all 10 recipes. This has 6 of them, so maybe there's some similarities in that. What's darker yet is going to be the single barrel, and we'll get to that next week. So as it sits, the ethanol has mellowed out just a little bit. That's why I like to let it sit. It changes as it sits. Some people call it the neck pour. I don't necessarily believe in the neck pour. I've experienced it, but I don't know if I still really believe in it. Especially not if you're going to aerate this, and if you do the aeration when you drink it the same way that I do. Incidentally, if I start to perspire, it's because I still don't have any air conditioning. It went out last Thursday morning before the Bourbcast. 11:30 it went out, so we were suffering even then. The good news is that tomorrow they're coming and they're going to bring me a brand new furnace. That's not good news for my pocketbook, but it's good news for the rest of summer and safety into the winter time when I need it. All right. Hey, Mac, how are you? Welcome again. All right, so we've gone through this, and Mac, since you're just joining us, I'll just kind of quickly reiterate. On the nose, the ethanol was strong right off the bat. I got pears. The cinnamon is stronger in this than in some of the other ones that are Four Roses that we've tried. Getting some of the similar notes of salted caramel and vanilla. This is the small batch select. It's 104 proof, and where the recipes are different with Four Roses. This is a relatively new product, just in the last year or two, And it's the first new product in about 10 years for Four Roses. So now they have 4 products for 4 roses. Okay. All right, so let's go ante up here. Okay. Woo! I'm anticipating a room temperature being a little less warm because my room temperature right now is warmer than it should be. The house is sitting at about 80 degrees right now. Even this stuff, which is down in my basement, is warmer than it would normally be because the basement is warmer. I've got a dehumidifier down there sucking up the moisture and it puts out warm air. The bourbon is in a different part of the basement. It's on the floor, cement floor, but I'm sure it's still warmer than it ought to be. Tasting a stark difference between this bottle and the single barrel I'm having next to it. I'm not going to do back-to-back this week. I might do that next week. I will be honest and tell you that my back-to-back is not great. I tend to favor one over the other and tend to pull out notes from one better than I would another. So my back-to-back is not good game. I hope that doing this is going to help me mature in that a little bit. But tonight I'm going to just stick with the, gosh, you make me really want to open that single barrel now. Doggone it. I'm not going to do it because I know I won't be able to do it objectively. So we're just going to stick with this. I did the first pour, and that's that one to get that ethanol out of the way. So let's get into a real tasting now. Gosh, Mike. A lot of the sweetness and normality that I found on the nose is completely different on the palate. I'm getting a very spicy rye note. Now, going back to the recipe, I don't know if that's going to be appropriate. So if we look at the recipe, the yeasts that are in this, well, let's go to this one. We know that we're using 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, and 10. So the yeasts on 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 10 are going to be V, K, F. V, K, and F. V is a delicate fruit overtone. K has a slight spice. And F has herbal notes. I'm going to tell you, I think that the K yeast, the spicy yeast, is what's jumping out for this particular product. And the 104. I mean, it's funny that as I sit here and talk to you, my, right here, corners of my lips are a little bit numb. It's only 104 proof. It shouldn't do that, but I think it's that different recipe. I think it's that spicier note. This is definitely spicier than I expected it to be. The rye on these, going back to mash B, dropping my glasses here. Only 35. Oh, I guess 35% rye is a decent rye. And on this one, we have a 20% rye. That doesn't mean there's 55% rye. You got to do the law of averages here. But that 35% rye on that top side does lend itself to a more spicy flavor. And that's kind of what I'm getting, is that spicy flavor. It's spicy. I'm going to do it one more, just the way it is, and see if I can catch anything else, because I think the ethanol is still playing with me, and I think that rye side of things is still playing with me. I'm going to see if I can pick anything else out, because the nose was more complex than the palate for me. And Mike, he had said, "Hey, John, how are you?" Mike said that there's a stark difference. So, Mike, maybe let me know, in your opinion, what you think that the differences are. Do you think this is a spicier one than the single barrel? I'm not going to open it. I got it. This is what we're doing next week. But do you think it's spicier? Do you think, I know it's hotter. It's a hotter proof, a higher proof than the single barrel. The single barrel is only... heck, I don't know. $100 proof. The writing is so small on these things, even with glasses, forget it. So this is 104. This is only slightly more proofy, more alcohol by volume. But Mike says, agree 100%. It has a spicier notes and it's hotter. You can feel it. Okay, good, Mike. Thank you. It's not just me. Shoo. Now you still make me want to go back to back. I'm not going to do it because I won't be fair. I need a sorbet or something. All right, one more of these. That ethanol hangs on. It's not one of those things where you could do like a 10-second thing and then the ethanol goes away. It sticks with it. This is a spicy bottle. Spicy pour. The reason I kind of giggled, and Mike, maybe you're drinking this, maybe you taste it too, and maybe the back-to-back will ruin it like it does it for me, but I'll tell you what. The caramel came out in that one a little bit more, only it wasn't salted caramel. And the other thing that I found, and this, I've heard of this before, I've never experienced it, so when I got this note, I was amused and a little tickled by it. I actually got a note of those little cinnamon red hot candies. How, you know, they just have this heavy duty cinnamon candy-ish kind of strange flavor. Now, I say this never having Fireball. I've never had Fireball in my life. It doesn't even interest me. There's just nothing about Fireball. I mean, I'll try it one of these days, yeah. But I don't care for cinnamon candy. And I never cared for cinnamon gum. So I'm guessing that I won't like Fireball. So I've never tried it. But I'm getting a hint of those little red hot candies, cinnamon candies, vaguely cinnamon candies, in that last dram. That was kind of fun. And I am getting this numbness around the inside of my lips. All right. Mike says, I had that note with larceny, and I get that as well here. You're on point. Thank you, Mike. I love being on point. I love it when I'm not the only one that senses something, because sometimes I feel like I am. So that's cool. All right. I can't say as though I ever got that with larceny, but I have heard that about larceny. That's a wheated bourbon, and my experience with larceny go all over the palate. Sometimes I'll drink that stuff and I'll think, boy, that's really nice and smoky. It's almost like, a Scotch light or something like Dewar's, where there's just a little bit of a peaty type of sense to it. Just a little bit of smoke from the barrel. And there's other times I'll drink it and it's like, maybe I'll mix this with something. I like larceny, but then there's times I don't like larceny. It's a strange bourbon, larceny. And we've never tasted it on the Bourbcast, and I will do that, but I want to wait until I find a barrel proof, which I have not found. And in that case, I will go back to back on both of them, and you'll probably hear me slurring by the end of the Bourbcast. So that's cool that we're agreeing on that, Mike. I think that's neat. All right, so we're going to go ahead to the next step and add some water to it. I'm not going to put a whole lot more in there. I've still got more drinking to do. I don't want to knock the bottom out of this bottle like I did the small batch last week. So this is half filtered reverse osmosis water, and this is half of this limestone water. This is the old limestone mixing water that is kind of a rage right now, and I will just tell you that I did a little research on it, and it's probably more kitsch than fact. The idea that bourbons in Kentucky are used with limestone water is a fact. Limestone is a naturally filtered water that is just abundant in Kentucky, and that's a big part of bourbon making in Kentucky. It's naturally filtered by the limestone. That being said, they make their mash with limestone water. When they do their distillation and when they do their cutting, It's with regular filtered reverse osmosis water. It is not with limestone water. It doesn't mean that it isn't fun to play with the gimmick, and it does taste good. It is good water, but I just used it for the heck of it. If you want to buy it, buy it. I would tell you if you're going to buy it, don't do it with shipping, because that made this bottle stupid expensive. It's the same reason I don't order bitters and different flavors from Old Forester, because they're just little bottles, and by the time they get here, the shipping is stupid. It would cost me less to drive to Louisville, go to Old Forester, and buy them off the shelf, even with all the gas in a 4-hour drive. So I'm just doing it this way. All right, so we have more. Larceny is great in an old fashioned. I will agree with you 100%. I was at a bar in Cincinnati. We talked about this before, called Japs. And Japs is just one of those bars that is so unique and so wonderful. They normally have a jazz band playing. It's got a speakeasy vibe. The bartenders are fantastic. Really fantastic. They don't use simple syrup except for if you ask for it. The rest of the time, they're muddling those sugar cubes. God bless them. Really neat place. Japs. It's an area of Cincinnati called Over the Rhine. Sounds right. Anyhow, so I was in there one night, and I know that a lot of old fashions are made with Old Granddad Bonded 100. I'm fine with that. I like Old Granddad Bonded 100. You could use Ancient Age 100 if you want to. Fine with me. But a lot of them use the Old Granddad. It's a $15 bottle, but it makes a great old fashioned. Well, they had run out of it. And a lot of bars do that. A lot of bars use that bourbon. I've been to several, and they've admitted they're using the Old Granddad. So, but they had run out. So I said, hey, make it out of Larceny. And they did, and it was fantastic. It was really, really good. Okay, because this is a little bit higher proof and a little bit higher spice, I'm going to add probably closer to a full ounce, maybe a little over an ounce of water to this. I want to knock it down, and I want to open it up. And I don't think that in its current state of overwhelming me with every dram, that I'm going to get a good, real flavor profile out of it. And I take some delight in telling you that I'm being overwhelmed by this dram, and that's because one of them, again, I went to a film festival in Cincinnati, and they had Four Roses out, and I tried it, and I thought it was thin. And I was kind of newer into bourbon, but I had Woodford Reserve kind of as a staple. I love Woodford Reserve. But they had the Four Roses out, and I don't know if it was the 80 proof or the 90 proof, but both of them have the tendency to be a little thin on the palate and could use help with a little bit of water being added to it. I didn't know that at the time. I drank it the way it was. I drank everything neat. As a matter of fact, even then, I put it on ice more than I do now. So I'm kind of... It's an ironic thing that now I want to add water to knock it down rather than to pick it up. Give this a good spin. Throw my underwear in there, it'll be nice and clean. I don't know where that came from. I just did laundry today. And it reminded me of that. I don't know why, I'm sorry. That was just wrong. Okay, all right. Here we go. Mm-hmm. Okay. The first thing I noticed is a much more balanced mouthfeel. From the ethanol, the heat, the spice, everything is much more balanced along the palate when I added water to it. The ethanol is still strong. It's still spicy, but it's more balanced. And the mouthfeel has a little bit higher viscosity now, so it just spreads out better. Still hot, but there's more going on, and I like it better after I've added probably a good ounce of water, maybe a little more than an ounce. I'm glad you know them. Love Cincy. Yeah, that is just one of the different places I've been down in there. I'm a filmmaker, so I go down to Cincinnati often to network with my fellow filmmakers. And the last couple times I've been to the Over the Rhine area, we've been to Japs. And there was another one down there too that I can't remember the name of now. I haven't been to it as many times as I went to Japs, but it's right there in the same neighborhood. And it's also quite fantastic. And there's another one over, there's the 20th Century Theater, and there's a bar across from the 20th Century Theater that I can't remember the name of either, but it's good. It's good. Not as good as Japs, but it's a good bar, and I enjoyed it. Anytime you're in Cincinnati, I will tell you, go to Japs. I don't know the owner. I've met her. She's very nice. And she's really good at what she does. And she has great taste in jazz music. She brings in some really great bands. Nothing electronic. It's all the old-time jazz. I love jazz. One of the things I like going about to New Orleans is the jazz. I found a speakeasy microbrewery near Bourbon Street. Not on Bourbon Street, but near it. I think they called it the Church District or something like that, which is ironic as well. But I was in there and I was listening to this jazz band. It was just a three-piece. And I was drinking some locally made microbrews. And I had a blast. And then I got pretty tipsy and walked down to Bourbon Street where my friends were, and they were sitting in a place called Felix's. And Felix's is where I had my very first oysters ever. And it's probably because I was the microbrew first. I think you got to be a little bit drunk to eat your first raw oyster. Sorry, but you do. I've since been back to Felix's, and I not only had the oysters on the half shell, but also their char-grilled oysters, which are heaven. Amazing. Incredible. I love them. I love oysters. So anyhow, but yeah, Japs. That's where I had my Larceny Old Fashioned. And it was really, really good. And he used a sugar cube, and I was really impressed. I have sugar cubes, I just haven't gone there yet. I'm afraid, so very afraid. It's still really spicy. That rye spice, the cloves, pepper, those are a big part of what I'm getting here. There's some caramel there, but boy, it's in the back. I'm not getting any. There's a little vanilla maybe. I'm not getting the normal sweeter notes that you get with a lot of bourbons. I'm not getting molasses. I'm not getting honey. Just spice. If we go to the flavor wheel, I don't know if I'll be able to see much out of this or not. The rye is there, so we're over in the grains. I would say that the oak is there, so we're over in the woods. Some of those sweet notes down in the sweet and aromatic are not there. The spices, yeah, clove and cinnamon, black pepper, absolutely. Tobacco leaf, I would go there. Anise, no, I'm not catching anise on this one. Herbal, not so much. I know I probably should with the different yeast strains that they put in there, but I'm just not catching that. Definitely nothing in the fruit, nothing in the floral. This is, in a lot of ways, a very earthy bourbon, and I'm just not getting some of the notes out of it that the flavor wheel would suggest that I should. It's just that strong in the spice that it's kind of overpowering everything else. That being said, if you like a spicy bourbon, this one is for you. I don't dislike it. I'm not telling you that I do. I like it. I don't know that I would prefer this over more well-rounded bourbons that have more of a complex profile, like the 1910 or the 1920 or the Woodford even, or the Evan Williams Single Barrel, or even Buffalo Trace. You know, a lot of their products, even though some of them are quite spicy and have higher proofs, they are more balanced as far as flavor profile to heat and everything else. Whereas this has just a lot of heat and a lot of spice. And while the mouthfeel is more balanced on water, the flavor feel is still very unbalanced towards ethanol, oak, spicy rye, maybe a real hot cinnamon. And that little bit of citrus. When it's watered down, when you add an ounce of water to it, that little bit of citrus on the back end. That's very pleasant, actually. It's a little bit like maybe a lemon juice, just in the very back of your tongue. I didn't catch it when it was fully neat, but when I put it down with water, it was a little different story. All right, let's do the ice test. A lot of bourbons just plain fall apart when you put them on an ice sphere. I have a sneaking suspicion this is not going to be one of them. This one stood up to water without a problem. It was a champ. So putting this on ice, I hear the theme from Rocky. It's going to beat my butt like Clubber Lang. Speaking of Rocky, I don't know if you know this or not, I'm a bit of a Stallone fanboy. I love the Rocky movies. They're among my favorite movies. Well, one of the things about Rocky 4 that I never liked was the way they kind of popped it out like an 80s pop song. The soundtrack was poppy. They had that stupid robot that was supposed to be in love with Polly halfway. Polly. It's just stupid robot. Dumb idea. Awful plot point. I get what they were going for. Rocky's super rich now and whatever. But there were things about Rocky 4 that were not perfect, were not good. Well, solved. Sylvester Stallone has been back in editing, creating a new Rocky 4 director's cut. It's going to take out the stupid stuff. Apollo Creed's still going to die. Spoiler alert. Apollo Creed's still worm food. And Drago still going to, mix it up and do their thing. But there's probably going to be scenes that weren't there before. I don't think there'll be any new scenes because this is like late 80s, early 90s that this thing was filmed. But the soundtrack will be different, I think. Because some of the stupid songs that were too soft and too stupid, how do I really feel, are going to be out of it. And the whole robot thing is gone. So I'm kind of looking forward to the director's cut of Rocky 4. Ooh, we have comments. Hey, Kevin is watching. Kevin, you missed it last night. I made a whiskey sour and I used egg whites. You didn't think I would, but I did. I did, and it was good. All right. Mike says, college film professor shredded Rocky even though he loves them. Oh, yeah. I mean, there's things about the Rocky franchise that you could fix. The first one is almost flawless. I would probably say that the sixth one is almost flawless. Really good movie. And for that matter, I really like the Apollo Creed movies, or Creed movies, with the son, Adonis Creed. The last one that had Drago coming back. It was kind of a trope. And it came out the way you'd expect it to come out. But the acting has been good. The direction has been good. The stories have been, stories have been good. I like the Rocky movies. My favorite of all of them probably is still Rocky 3, because it's just that much over the top, and Mr. T is just so good. He had never acted before. He was not an actor, and he brought him in, and he was he was just, Mr. T. He was awesome in that movie. I thought a lot of Rocky 3 was really, really good. The Eye of the Tiger thing was kind of stupid, but I got where they were going at the time. Plus, they had to tie in the Survivor song, which is a great song. But I think it's the first one. Rocky 3 is probably the first one I actually saw in the theaters. And I remember walking out of the theaters, walking like this, feeling all tough. And even now, I will watch a fight scene on a movie, and I cannot sit still. If it's a good fight scene, like I was watching, what was I watching? I watched Black Swan, that Natalie Portman weird movie. It's supposed to be like a horror film for ballet. I watched that one, and there was a chick fight in it. I was like doing this. I just do that. I move, and I I move when I see a fight on TV. I can't help myself. It's fun. Okay. Now this sat on ice for a couple of minutes while I was yapping. Tim, how are you? Thanks for watching. You're about halfway through. We're getting close to being done. I'm going to finish this, and then we're going to make a quick Manhattan, and then we'll be over with. But thank you for joining us. I'm glad you're here. We're doing the Four Roses Small Batch Select. The notes so far, Tim, is that it's very spicy, and the proof, although 104, is hotter than you might expect for 104. And even on water, it maintains that heat, maintains that spice, and doesn't express itself well. It balances the mouthfeel better on water, but it doesn't balance the flavor feel. Now on ice, cooling it down, it's a rarity. This might be one I prefer on ice. I'm getting notes back. I'm getting notes of citrus, of caramel, vanilla, cinnamon. Pepper's still there. The ethanol is way down. It mutes the flavors, right? Ice mutes the flavors of bourbon. In this case, that's not a bad thing. Which leads me to being a little bit excited about our next step, which is to make a drink out of it. Because this one, the 80 proof, which has not a whole lot of spice and it's pretty thin, did not make the greatest Black Manhattan. The vermouth overpowered it. This one, I liked enough to drink a few Black Manhattans last Thursday and knock the bottom out of the bottle. And that's what we used last night for the whiskey sours as well. So with this one being a little nicer on ice, this might make for a pretty good Black Manhattan. So let's do it. Shall we? Get this out. We've been doing it with 1.5 ounces. We haven't been doing a 2-ounce pour. We've been doing 1.5 ounce pour. Whoops, wait a minute. Let's take care of this first. And let's just get it in there. Okay. I got 2 that are stuck in there that don't want to go, so fine. They can go to the room and just stay there. Miss dinner. I had strict parents. All right. There we go. So that's 1.5 ounces of the Four Roses Single Barrel Select. And then we'll do the vermouth. And that'll be the ounce of the vermouth. I bet it's not going to overpower this one. No sirree, Bob. And then the black walnut bitters. 1, 2, 3. I know, I'm a rebel. All right. And away we go. Stir it for about 30 seconds or until the glass gets nice and cold or frosty. Which in this hot environment, it's got to be over 80 degrees in here right now. Because my air conditioner's out, it's got to be over 80 and the humidity is building. So I'm kind of in a rush to finish this so I can turn the little portable air conditioner back on. It's loud, otherwise it'd be on right now. That should be good. Strain that out. And we have a small batch select Black Manhattan. Ooh, wait. I got called out 2 weeks ago because I didn't put the cherry in. And now I will not be so gauche. Except for I can't get the damn thing out. Boop. I'm actually surprised I like these cherries. I didn't think I would because I'm not a big cherry fan. I don't care for them. Black cherries are all right. Just give this a little stir. I know I normally put it on the toothpick, but I fumble enough with these things getting them out of the jar. All right, here we go. That's good. It's even better than the small batch, which is 90 proof. That 104 proof, high rye, high spice, really worked nice in the Manhattan. Head it out. Have a good night. Cheers. Mike, thank you for joining us. I appreciate your help on this and your back and forth. Thanks for drinking along with me. Next week it'll be the single barrel. Next week, single barrel. So come back next week, next Thursday. Thank you for being here. This has always gone. These always go longer than I think they're gonna because I yappy. This is good. That may be the best one yet. It makes me wonder what the Black Manhattan will be like with the single barrel, which is coming up next week. We're going to hit this one, 100 proof. This is, out of the 10 recipes, this is one recipe. It's a single barrel, so they're not all alike. I have several bottles of this. I may take a look and see how they're different. They will say on the front some of the differences in the barrels and when they were bottled and all those different things, and we'll go into that next week. But today, it was this one. Neat. I got a lot of spice out of it, and almost too much, almost to the point where I wasn't able to really appreciate the flavors of the drink itself. Very spicy, very hot for 104 proof. Old Forester 1920 is not as hot, and that's 115 proof. So this is just a really hot 104 proof bourbon. I like it. I like it a lot in a Black Manhattan. On water, the mouthfeel was a little bit better, a little more balanced, but still the flavor profiles were not as balanced as the water profile, as the mouthfeel profile. So I will be interested to give this its proper run next week. In the meantime, we will be here next Thursday, 7:30. Check us out on Instagram at Beautiful Bourbon. Of course, you're on Facebook now. And of course, we also have the blog, which is always underperforming because I never update it like I should. That's at beautifulbourbon.com, and that's where we actually discuss the tasting notes, and sometimes I even put the videos up to further exemplify my expertise. I didn't wear my Bourbon Steward pin tonight. I feel like a schlub. I should have worn it. Darn me. If I wear it, I'll lose it though, right? So, or I'll lose it on the way to wearing it. Anyway, we will see you next week. Thanks a lot for watching. I do appreciate it. This is always a lot of fun. And if you share it, I'll appreciate you for doing so. But I do appreciate you for being here. We'll see you next week.